I did touch up my nose with powder so that I look much better for you for this second session. An increasingly digital and interconnected world is very imperative for SMEs, right? We have to adapt to technologies, and I say we because I am an SME. This is precisely why I do what I do. We have to make sure that our business models become increasingly important in the space, and if we don't adapt, they will never become important. In fact, they will die. And to that effect, our next panel of discussion is titled Digital Migration, Identifying Innovative Ways to Embrace 4IR into Business Models. Now, during this discussion, we'll discover groundbreaking strategies. Again, I hate cliches, but they are truly groundbreaking. So I'm not saying that because it was scripted. They are groundbreaking, so please trust me. So groundbreaking strategies to seamlessly integrate the power of 4IR into your business and the innovative technologies and the tools that can drive growth, efficiency, and access and competitive edge in the digital era. Now, I'm going to introduce my panelists. I was given 4.5 paragraphs of your bios. I've tried to cut them to 4.5 words each so that we use the 45 minutes much more profitably. First to join me, Head of Medium Business and Diversified Sales, Telkom Business, Srini Mandri. Please come up as I read your bio. Currently National Sales Manager at Telkom Business and is responsible for Telkom's high-value fixed customer portfolio. Has 20 years of experience in the telecommunications industry with various network operators. Srini, thank you very much. Khulule Koma is the CEO and founder of Credible. And he's going to help me to pronounce that later when I got it, if I got it wrong. A talent marketplace connecting business clients to trusted digital professionals. Born in Kimberley, probably one of the 4 people I know who were born in Kimberley, including Saul Plucky. It's a very important thing, including Saul Plucky, guys. Don't laugh about this. It's very good. Kholu is a 2-time founder with a mission for solving the education to work challenge in South Africa. His interests are technology, digital products, gamification, and design thinking. Kholu, please join us on stage. Thank you very much. He promises to beat me at golf soon. We shall see about that. The next panelist, Hepsi Mkungo, together with Mpopi Kupe, co-founded Zevoli Growth Partners back in 2014. Zevoli Growth Partners specializes in assisting corporates in unlocking shared value through tailored SME development programs. I hope at some point these terms will become easier in English, because even I think that they're too deep. Hepsi, please come and join us on stage. I must tell you that I pulled her off a deathbed. She was so ill yesterday and she was crying stuff. And I said, if you're not coming, I'm not coming. Then she made it. Thank you very much, Hepsi. And finally, Tsepo Mahoma, Head of Business Innovation and Entrepreneurship, SADC Youth Forum. Tsepo serves as the Head of Business Innovation and Entrepreneurship, as we say, for SADC Youth Forum, which is a regional platform for youth and youth organizations within the SADC region. He's vastly interested in the opportunities being brought forward by the digitization of the continent and specializes in disruptive innovation and 4IR. Just a few ground rules. We've got 43 minutes to do this and finish. To do that, I'd like us to have a conversation. If you wait for me to ask you questions, it's going to take us long. If somebody wants to say something as somebody else speaks, do that. It's a conversation, right? Just come in. Of course, I will moderate it if I think you're out of order. We should never going to be you are 4IR people who can't be out of order. Yeah. But also, most importantly, I'd like us to make concepts real and granular. Can we not speak language that is going to scare people out of this room and think, what were we doing there? I'm asking you very kindly that we make this relatable to everybody here. But most importantly, I'm going to ask you to participate. I'm just a facilitator. I told you up front, what I know about technology is exceptionally dangerous. I need you. So, I'm going to throw a big rock at you, Strini, because I called you first.
You.
4IR, right? So I've run small businesses. All of them have failed over the years. One of the things we hate in small business is big terms. So when I hear 4IR, I want to run because I'm thinking I'm never going to manage that product. What is 4IR in layman's terms?
4IR is the fourth industrial revolution. Essentially, if you look at the first industrial revolution, second industrial revolution was, factories and big production, big business. Thereafter, on the third industrial revolution, moving into your technology space, from connectivity. And the fourth industrial revolution is basically gathering all this information, a betterment of a technology from a connectivity perspective, bringing things like artificial intelligence with all the big data that we possibly would have gathered. Yeah. How can we utilize that data, to make much more informed decisions?
Yeah.
And essentially, if you look at the way things are changing and everything is happening at a much, much more faster rate. So, with 4IR, with the fourth industrial revolution, it's basically bringing all these things together, making it simpler, better, faster, much more effective for the normal human being, from a normal consumer perspective, even into businesses as well, incorporating those things to have better insights.
Okay. Can you hear Strini? Thank you. I just like shouting. I'm a typical broadcaster, right? We speak loud to the mic, even when it's right here in front of us. Holo, many years ago, when something called affirmative action was introduced, the corporate would tell you, we can't find black people, or we can't find black women. Well, we only found one for today. Right? Isn't there a new challenge? You recruit in this space of tech, and I can imagine SMEs would need new skills, new brains, but they will say to you, where do we find them? Because ultimately, I can't do some of the work that is expected of me to get my business into the new space of IR and integrate and become better at what I do.
First of all, good afternoon to our viewers.
Still safe.
Online.
Morning.
So absolutely right. I think the direct answer is you'll find that kind of talent on Credible, shameless plug. But I think SMEs are always faced with the idea of adopting new technologies and having the expertise to use those technologies. And I think that is a challenge not only faced by SMEs, but also from corporate clients and enterprises. So there is a huge skills gap in the country. I think that's represented by the structural state of unemployment faced in the country, where there is a huge amount of demand for specific in-demand skills, jobs, whether that's cybersecurity, web development, but our labor force is just not in the position to take up those job opportunities. So you're also seeing a lot of the investments that NPOs, enterprises, education sectors are making in trying to build up that skills pipeline. So, I mean, it is a difficult challenge to try and find great talent. And I think that's really the differentiator. It's not just about finding talent, it's about finding great talent. So there's a lot of opportunities for young people to invest in new forms of learning, whether that's YouTube learning or even going onto Udemy, any of these online learning academies to kind of learn these in-demand skills.
If I can come in there, I think we should not see that as a barrier as well as SMEs, because there are people that play within the AI space, play in the IoT space, that it's built their business around that. Right? So essentially what I'm saying is, if in our own business, we shouldn't see that as a gap. How can we leverage off those organizations that is that their core business, it's a primary function, that's what they do. They employ those people that gives them the edge, that has the skill sets within that environment. So as much as, yes, it is a barrier across, I think we should not use that as a barrier and a means in which we cannot aggregate within this new digital transformation within our business and adopt it as well within our businesses. We should not see it as a barrier.
Tsepo, we are told that Africa is the fastest growing continent. We're told that we're getting more gadgets into people's hands. People are involved every day with technology. Are you finding that, and are you finding that if we are involved in technology, I'm not talking young people in this case, so I shouldn't say we are. If they are they doing it entrepreneurially, or is it just?
Yes, firstly, I would like to greet the entire panel and the audience. So I think from an African perspective, especially from my side, because I work entirely at the SADC region, one of the key things that we have been able to, to harness was how to actually engage with young people on how we can teach them on how they can facilitate and also learn, 4IR skills. So we have established a center that deals with ensuring that young people that are interested in blockchain, IoT, big data, and data science, we are able to teach them on how they can utilize these things and embed them in their businesses. So one of the key things that businesses need to really ponder is that in most cases, businesses that utilizes and put 4R technologies into their strategies are businesses that are going to be more agile and more competitive in the future. So we have utilized AI into understanding on how can young people that are interested into this segment tap into these markets. One of the key things that I've noticed in the African region is that access to funding is one of the critical challenges. But with 4IR, we have learned that small businesses can also compete with larger corporations because AI has democratized access to information. There's a speaker that engaged that, right now it's no longer the issue of lack of access to information. Information is there, but how do we embed it? How do we unpack it in a more practical way that even for the layman, even for someone that is situated in a rural area, can be able to interpret the essence of AI? So one of the key things that I'm happy to be involved in is what we call the EFTA, the African Free Continental Trade Area.
Can we talk about that next?
Okay.
Thank you for that. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay.
By the way, please have the water because I'm going to ask you very tough questions. I don't want you to be falling down. Thank you very much. Hepsi, he speaks about access to funding, but there are people who argue that access to markets is more
Difficult.
what we need as SMEs. Right, and what you do at Linkage speaks exactly to that. Talk to us about that and the importance of access to markets.
Okay. Morning, everyone. So in the intro, you mentioned that in 2014, I started a company called Zivoli Growth Partners. It's an enterprise and supply development company that helps corporates to run their ESG programs. During those years, we've learned a lot around the challenges that are faced by corporates in executing enterprise and supply development. At the same time, we've learned a lot around what small businesses are saying is not happening. They're tired of being developed over a period of time and no opportunities. So what we set out to do in 2013 was to establish One Linkage, which is a cloud technology business that focuses on connecting opportunity between corporates and small businesses. And how we do this, we had to understand from the various stakeholders within a corporate, what are the challenges that you're facing that don't allow you to provide opportunities to small businesses? What we've discovered is that in any given corporate, there are about 4 or 5 departments that interface with small businesses, and they're all in silos. There's a department that provides funding, one that provides opportunities, there's one that drives development, that's ESD, and then there's a CSI projects as such. So we interviewed each and every of those stakeholders to understand what's stopping you from supporting small businesses when there is a mandate from an ESD perspective, from BEE, from all those aspects. Yeah. What's stopping you, the problem? So what we found from the procurement side, their problem was that we don't know who these SMEs are, so we can't trust them. They are not vetted. The type of solutions that are out there it's one for all. So you have no idea to get a sense of how far they are in terms of execution, if they were to be given a contract. So we noted that, we thought that our solution must actually address that for that type of a client. Then we went to the enterprise and supply development team to ask them what's their challenge. Their challenge was that they need to demonstrate ROI when it comes to enterprise and supply development. But their challenge is that within the corporate, these SMEs are not absorbed to then, conduct business
Yeah.
with that. So between the two departments, they're not even talking to each other, and they're not working with each other. The third one was spoke to the funding team. Funding team, similarly, they are given funds by that corporate to support small businesses. But if you look at the disbursements of the funds, you find that it doesn't even reach 5%. And the problem is that they are not ready, we don't know where to find them, all of that. So we then, in 2020, built a solution with a particular corporate that was focused on localization, supplier diversity, and ensuring that the problems that are challenged, the challenges that are faced by small businesses, there is a cohesive approach to them as a business, as, let's say, a company. So in this platform, we have 4 modules. The module is how to verify these SMMEs to give a level of comfort to these corporates. So we grade them blue, bronze, silver, gold to platinum. Platinum meaning that don't bother
You're good to
develop
go.
them. You're good to go.
Yeah.
They've gone through all the development already. Now give them work. Anyone below gold, that means they might have just a little tweak that they might need to work on. And therefore, you support them until they reach gold. Then we spoke to the funding side. Then they provide funding once you access to market. So we've asked them to list all their opportunities that they need to ring fence for EMEs and QSEs onto the platform. And these opportunities will then be listed on the platform so those SMEs can apply, because now they're ready, right? So then nothing's stopping them from applying. And then the third part is that, okay, now they've applied, now they need funding to execute. Can you please give us your funding as well for this cohort? So that's what the platform does. It enables that, the development, skills, and all of that, and then works in tandem with your ERP systems, works in tandem with SAP, because SAP really closes these SMEs out. So we said, give us a platform that's an easy entry.
Yeah.
It's not a barrier to entry, but an easy entry. Then we'll work with your SAP to extract information from our linkage platform.
I'm going to interrupt you there. Thank you very much. Excuse me. Holo. Again, when we use big phrases, we could scare a lot of people, right? If I'm a plumber or I run a cooking oil distribution business, right? And hear things like 4IR, and I'm thinking, how is that going to move my oil from the producer to the customer, right? How do we make this 4IR sexy so that I'm not left outside the bus, right? How do we make it relatable to an ordinary SME that does not understand EME and QCPS and SEP and all these things that I've just heard this morning? None of which I understand.
It's an interesting question. I think on the previous panel, somebody was speaking about systems and processes, and I think that's the heart of every business. So if you are a small business, let's just assume that you don't have enough human resources to actually capacitate your business effectively. So a lot of these 4R solutions can help you augment your capacity in terms of if you are running an accounting department, maybe you just need one person to actually run 0. I think that was an example that was used. Or if you're managing your customer relation communications via email, you can opt to use, I think Mr. CEO said something like Zoho. So,
but does it save me money, Strini? So now I move to those solutions. I don't hire somebody in my office. She said we create businesses, small businesses to create jobs. Now I go to a Xero or whoever they are.
Zoho, yeah.
Does it save me money? And does it bring me, I'm sure it brings me efficiencies, but I want to save every cent I make.
Absolutely. If you're in small business, you want to make sure that you're competitive. You want to make sure that you driving costs down. You obviously want to be, profitable. So we know that we do not know all the stuff. You as a business owner, you might have a good product. You might have a good go-to-market strategy, but you might not have, the backings in terms of HR, your IRs, your accounting platforms or people to support these things. But then again, there's companies that obviously perfected these things with platforms. So I think Lunga spoke about Zoho, and I'll give you a practical example of a customer, because in my business, I meet customers on a daily basis. It's part of our jobs. We service the small, medium business segment. So we met a customer, and this guy's got, I think, the most amazing product. we met with him just to get an understanding of his business, and he says, look, because we were essentially talking to him about connectivity, having that conversation with the customer, we realized that he doesn't necessarily have the best, IT, people at his disposal. Over and above that, he's doing everything else except focusing on what's his core business. We offered Zoho to him, and obviously with some connectivity products as well that we provide to him. We met him around a year and a half later, and his business, obviously expanded. And the reason why was he leveraged off a platform that gave him the ability, not to invest in those things from a physical person, and it gave him the ability to start better managing his business and focus on the key areas that he wanted to focus on. Companies like Telkom, remember, we are corporate. Part of our jobs to service our SMEs is to ensure that we get the best products and service to make their lives simpler, better, faster, and easier. So essentially what we go and do on behalf of our SMEs and on behalf of our end users is we go with our muscle and negotiate specific products, services, platforms, innovations, technology, and drive that cost down so we can break it up and make it much more simpler to, or cheaper, and affordable to the end user. So we have the scale and capacity to do that and invest in those type of things.
So you're bringing down the barriers of entry.
100%.
Especially from a cost point of view.
Because that's one of the biggest things.
Yeah. Okay, Seppo. And you wanted to talk about the free trade thing, right?
Yeah.
So I have a different question, and you can bring in the free trade into your answer.
Okay.
I feel that all tech talk and almost product and service I see seems to be parachuted from elsewhere in the world.
Yeah.
Are we Africanizing tech so that it speaks to everybody else? Are we creating a Deliware instead of a Zoro? A Mopeme instead of a SEP? And this is a very serious question.
Yeah.
Are we speaking not only from a language point of view, but from a product point of view? Are we Africanizing tech?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I remember in August, I got an opportunity to attend a youth symposium on the EFTA. When we were there, we were with the Secretary General, His Excellency Wamkele Mene, where we discussed some of the critical issues in terms of innovation, especially in the African context. I got an opportunity to meet a few young people in the region that were doing something very quite excellent in terms of innovation and also adapting businesses that are more relevant. I think the most critical issues, especially from an African context, is that how do we develop technologies that are more Africanized, that a person in every marginalized communities can use. So in Africa, I always say we have problems, and where we have problems, there's more opportunities. And one thing that I've noticed is that if we can utilize technology in a way that can address the day-to-day problems, that can also be quite more progressive. One day when I attended a conference called GovTech, I met a young man who introduced, by the way, I'm also a young man.
I was about to say.
I met a gentleman that produced a device that monitors taxi owners. So you see in a taxi, when you enter in a taxi, there is a camera. It monitors everything that has to do with, when you enter. It also has a payment system for those that does not like carrying cash. Yeah. It also helps the taxi owner to understand what the taxi driver is doing. For instance, if the taxi driver decides to off-ramp to take another route. So it's those kind of technologies that are more localized. Because if I buy taxis and I hire my cousin or anyone, and that person, I still have to pay, I still have to pay that for that taxi, but that person is not really taking care of my taxi. But in that essence, it gives the taxi owner more leverage in understanding what that taxi driver is doing on a day-to-day basis. And that's technology that is more embedded. It deals with the day-to-day issues of a business owner that wants to control and also to leverage on the finances.
And most importantly, does not need the taxi driver to have a matric. Because it's technology that they can use on a daily basis.
Yeah, that can use. It just needs a smartphone, which most people now are able to use a smartphone. So when we look at tech, so tech has to address my day-to-day problems. Because if I wake up today, the challenges that I have as an African and the challenges that a European person has, they're quite different. So when we look at, for the SMEs, when we look at problems in an African context, how do we design solutions that can solve my problems and your problems? And I think that has been the innovation dilemma, where we now have problems that in most cases people are not able to address. I'd give just a perfect example. You know, in the previous time, there was challenges with Uber. You know, people were driving the taxis, meter taxis. I'll call them meter taxis for lack of a better word. But what I've seen is that there is a guy that came up with an app that addresses that issue. Now meter taxis can now utilize an app. Because when I come from the airport, there is a meter taxi, there's an Uber. But what gives Uber the advantage is the app. I can take that app, send a location to my wife, for instance. But with a meter taxi, it's just a mutual conversation. But now someone has said, okay, there is a gap. How can I solve that gap? So I think when we design technologies, let's look at the day-to-day problems.
Okay. Asked and answered.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that. And yes, we don't have to use the knob gear to solve. I agree. Now, Hepsi, you have messed up with the corporates, right? You have taken them off their comfort zones and you've said to them, stop that nonsense that says that these guys don't exist. They do exist. You're actually not doing your part. The flip side, though, and it's a fair criticism, I want to say, that you then find a lot of SMEs don't get themselves market ready. They don't improve themselves, they don't get tech savvy, and they lose out on opportunities. How do we bridge that gap so that we can't then only blame the corporates for not playing the game when we're not upping ours?
Yes. So that was actually a resounding problem that corporates were facing, is that there are opportunities, but small businesses don't meet their end of the stick. So, like I've mentioned, that what we did with the platform was to grade small businesses, as I've mentioned, from blue to platinum. And every time an SME is graded, they get a sense of what the gaps are that they must solve before they become visible to opportunities, which are only at platinum level, by the way. So that growth plan allows them at their own pace to fix whatever the requirements are, whether it's a compliance issue, whether it's a system and processes. They will know what that issue is, and then they need to work towards reaching our platinum. So that's how we've managed that problem that they've raised to us. But still doesn't take away from the fact that now we have a lot of platinum SMEs who can execute without any issues. What are you then doing as corporates? I want to go back to the question that you're asking, because I liked it, around...
You like the question. I like this. Thank you very much.
I like that question very much. There's an issue around, there's a perception that global systems, or corporates prefer global systems. But these systems don't cater for local needs.
100%.
The reason why linkage exists is because we realize that Cooper, SAP, Oracle, none of those, they're actually a barrier to entry for small business in a corporate, because very difficult to navigate. So a corporate will tell you, well, you must be on SAP or you must be on Cooper. That is such a difficult thing to navigate. And yet those systems don't cater for the local requirements that allow these corporates to have a license to trade. What are you doing locally? So therefore localize your solutions. So when a corporate has those systems, we're saying to them, you can use your global systems, but start consuming local systems as well, because they're very clever entrepreneurs who've come up with solutions that really work for our local context and environment. I'm part of this, DIT, Duck is in Tech. I've come across a lot of other startups or other tech startups who have built incredible solutions. There's one, I mean, we use Zoho as well, but there's a lady within that group that has exceptional productivity tools that can be used by small businesses in South Africa, built in South Africa. And we keep forgetting that, these subscription fees with the exchange rate, you might think that Zoho is cheap now. Yes, I agree, it is at this point in time. But the exchange rate gets us in the long term. Because you think it's $20, and then the next time the rand is 100, and then of course you can't afford it anymore. Whereas if you look locally, I'm sure the pricing will be, beneficial for us. So I do believe that we need to start looking at empowering local tech companies. Having built Linkage, we then moved on to become an AWS advanced partner, meaning that we can build solutions as well. We provide cloud readiness, we do architecture reviews, all of that work. When I hear Lunga saying that they are in India building, and I ask myself, well, where was this RFP? Because we could have also responded.
It will change after today. Yeah.
So I'm really, really keen to engage him on that in particular, that there are a lot of software development companies locally that are empowering young people with skills and creating jobs here in South Africa.
Yeah.
Can you empower us with contracts to then continue to maintain those jobs?
Yeah. So there is a gentleman in this room. He has developed his own smartwatch, right? CRT sits there, the back there. And by the way, with the help of Telkom, that they've developed the smartwatch. Big up Telkom. However, tech develops so quickly that tomorrow his watch could be behind the times. Yeah. As I'm taking my jog, it could be telling me that I'm running backwards. Yeah. How do we make sure that not only does he develop this thing, but he's got software development technology that keeps him up to date so that he competes, with Samsung that I'm wearing now. Right. And I'm asking you, not because you're from Telkom, I'm asking you, how do we keep SMEs up to speed with tech as it develops day after day after day?
Yeah, so I think it's quite important. Again, as I said, information is out there. People obviously, I think as business leaders, as SMEs, one of the things that you saw that South Africans are mostly on the internet. Question is, what are we using that time for? Are we spending that 11 hours a day on a social media platform? How do we split the time up? Are we empowering ourselves with knowledge on how tech is advancing? Because as much as telcos, as businesses, that enables tech, as much as we put in those things to make people aware from a marketing perspective, from an awareness perspective, from a session like today, what are we as entrepreneurs doing to empower ourselves with that information that we have out there? But I mean, if I really have to look into, the question that you asked in terms of making it relevant, to that question, I think the most important thing is just engaging, with our customers, engaging with our SMEs, and most importantly, I think for the for the business owner, is not only the partner that he chooses to know that they're choosing a partner that's always keeping them abreast, always updating the tech. There's always better services and solutions out there. So that speaks to the partnership side of things, and coming back to what you were speaking about, I think it's very, very relevant that we start localizing some of these techs that we start bringing on board. And the reason for that is because there's an analogy, there's a scenario that I want to paint very quickly. So there's a big company, I'm not going to name the name. They looked at the HR process, and part of the HR process was the first step in terms of sifting through CVs and getting potential people, and not having the right intelligence into the system. They were actually looking for a tech individual, right? So what happened is when they brought in all these CVs, they used information from far as back as 15 years ago, and then we knew that 15 years ago, a lot of men was dominating the tech space. So essentially what happened there was, when they started sifting to the CVs, they found that, we're picking up people now And the system has given us people that are more, from a gender-based perspective, it was more men. You know, what happened to the females? But we know there's both men and females that are extremely excellent in tech right now. So also choosing the right software, the right partners, and the right technologies, and localizing it as well to your market is quite important. So,
funny coming from a man who kept on saying, don't ask me too many questions, and I don't like talking, and he speaks longer than anybody else. So it's question time. We got 12 minutes, unfortunately, for questions. And as you prepare for your questions, we've got one coming up here. The mic is coming. I want to read one that we got online. Well, at least online. It's from Eneka Ndlovu. And if I don't pronounce your name well, Eneka, please forgive me. He says, or she says, they say, being a BTT, born before technology, AI, robot 4IR, how does one adapt to all of these scary words? And second question, I like one question per person, but I'll ask it anyway. The Udemy online courses, are they legit for one to enroll? So I'm going to ask one of you to answer the first question, and then somebody else to answer the second. You pick whichever, any one of you. I'm not going to pick on you.
I'll take the Udemy one.
Yeah.
It's a verified platform.
Yeah.
But also anything like YouTube. There are not people awarding certifications on YouTube, but that content and that learning material that you're getting is from the best industry experts available.
Yeah.
So I think you should just throw yourself in all of that and not do one and do multiple. That's really where you'll build your competencies.
I think the first question was answered. I asked that question myself, so we go.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Hello, panel. My name is Mpilo Zondi from One Nation Youth Development. Basically, just to brief you guys, we're trying to bring forward the knowledge of the jobs that, like FIR, the jobs that necessarily, like people who come from the townships don't know about, like stuff that we're talking about here. We do content, we do videos. We did like season 1 of Career Corner. We want to do season 2. My question is for the panel, the people who are here, how do we get a hold of you guys? Because the problem that we're having with stuff like us, like I want to know, like this beautiful gentleman, this one here.
His name is
I want to know your story. I want to know how you got to where you are. Like there's a kid right now who's sitting somewhere in a township high school who wants to understand. So this gentleman here was well fed. The problem is when we email, like let's say Telkom or people like your organizations, it's send an email. When you send an email, nothing happens. And I would love to have an interview with all of you just to understand how you got to where you are. Because for me, it's very interesting. A guy who looks like me is sitting in a panel addressing us. There's kids in school who love to hear what you have to say. But now the thing is, you don't have time to address all the kids in the country. We already do that on our own thing. But I don't know how to get a hold of people who can help us grow what we're trying to grow. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have, I suspect you have DSTV at home. You don't? Well, you can catch it on the internet too. Right? You can live stream it. So if you go to channel 412 on DSTV, there's a channel called Business Day TV. These guys and many of their sort are always there. And we talk to them about these things. So also get the children to watch because they learn a lot. But yes, you must access them. I'm not dismissing what you're saying. But do get into other platforms that give you that information, right? Thank you very much. I'm excited that there are, oh, I was about to say there are no more questions.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lee Tegwani. I'm the founder of Unfiltered Media House. We are in the media, marketing, and communications space. My question for you guys is, how businesses based in areas that lack the infrastructure that enables them to participate in the digital transformation, survive the rapid fourth industrial revolution, like areas like Loli, for example, that are like far out there, but like are wanting to participate and are clearly not wanting to get left behind. Thank you.
Thank you for using Loli as an example, not Kimberly. My guest would not have been happy. But I think that question is up yours. Where you work, a majority of people have no access to facilities, to infrastructure, to stuff. How do they access 4IR and technologies to become better at what they do?
Yeah, so I think in most cases, one of the challenges that we've met, especially in the Southern African region, is that our advice to governments, especially the regional economic communities, is that when we talk about 4IR, it is quite important that governments has a part to play, because if we can create a partnership between the private sector and also the government, there are some roles where the private sector can play, but those roles sometimes are limited. You know, when you talk about infrastructure, how does government come into play to make sure that a rural place in Limpopo has access to the internet? You know, we have these ISPs, you know, they go to the rural areas, they put, you know, networks, but, you know, sometimes those networks are vandalized. How does the government sector come into play to ensure that they protect also the infrastructure? So until we find a common denominator between, or a common relationship or collaboration between the government and also the private sector, most of these issues are still going to be lacking. So in one of the most important things that I also reiterate is that, you know, we live in an age where technology is democratized. And one of the most important skills is having tools to relearn, to unlearn, and also to skill up. So we live in an age where it is quite important for any business or for any entrepreneur that wants to advance their technological skills to keep learning. So I myself, I believe that the knowledge that I have today, tomorrow, it's no longer relevant.
And that's up your street, right, Kholo? Not only because you would relate to a town outside the big CBDs, right? You know what happens there, but also because you're in the space of recruiting people with skills who need to reskill themselves all the time. Do we have, in your portfolio, do you see that you're getting more people into spaces who come from where I come from, which is urban Johannesburg, as opposed to Kimberley? And how are we bridging that gap?
Yes, I do think so. But I think the first thing to notice is that people from the small towns are coming to places like Johannesburg and Cape Town. There's that, I don't know what kind of migration process that is. So that is happening. But the key thing for me that's really interesting to see is that that talent is just as excellent as the talent that comes from Joburg. So that means people are already finding in their own scenarios, in their own local contexts, ways to upskill themselves, ways to learn. I don't know whether that's at a library or whether that's just at a community center or a talent acceleration hub, but there's a lot of work being done by ecosystem players, incubators, accelerators, who are creating these kinds of resources that young people can access, so that when they come to a place like Joburg because they believe the jobs are here, they can be competitive in the market. But I think another thing I'd add is that I think our employers and our corporates and our enterprises, although it is a trend right now, this thing of the future of work and remote work, it's not really being adopted as widely as you would see, because you would actually see a lot more enterprises actually saying, you don't have to be in Joburg for this role. You can stay where you are, you can work remotely. But I think that there's a little bit of remote work readiness that also has to be undertaken not only by talent, but also by organizations and employers. Because the way you monitor your staff, the way you make sure the work is being done correctly, it's a completely different way of working to the past. And I think employers also have to take that step and say, look, if we're going to be competitive, if we're going to attract top talent, how do we kind of bring in the benefits that enable online, remote work, hybrid working environments? So I think
is it because, Hepsi, that the people in leadership are left behind by this technology that's happening already, right? I mean, I could have been a manager for the last 30 years, and now I'm asked not to put bumps on the seats and remote control people from wherever they are in with their generators. Could that be a real issue?
I totally agree with that sentiment, that I think the people who are put in positions to support small businesses or just employees, themselves need to upskill themselves around digital transformation and what that actually means in reality. One of the things that we've seen with one of the clients that we have on Linkage, he has about 12,000 SMEs on Linkage. What we realize is that it's the part of skilling themselves and their SMEs is around looking at putting together, conferences and as well as I would say maybe a skills program around cybersecurity. And what we realized with one of our clients when we put that conference together, they themselves as employees were talking about how much they've learned from that. Although it was geared towards the small businesses that were, it was catered for. So I think constant upskilling is important. I don't come from a tech space. I use my industry knowledge to identify the gaps and close them with technology. And I think anyone can do that,
Yeah.
and we're all constantly upskilling ourselves around that.
So, if in the absence of any other question, I'm going to ask you to be very brief, the both of you. I'm actually completely out of time.
Hi. Yeah, just very quickly. I just wanted to actually, I'll pose this one to Telkom.
Save the best for last.
Yeah, I mean, government is still using Z83s to recruit. What role are you playing? I don't know if my information is outdated, but I understand that Telkom is a private public. You still have government as part shareholder. So what role are you playing to really influence for them to say, please, we understand we come from Stone Age, but can we move with the times? I was just telling Kulile that we are now, the world is talking about 5IR, and we are still lagging behind. We haven't caught up as South Africa onto 4IR as yet. Thank you.
Please pass the mic over to her quickly. We get the second question and the final question.
Good day. Gudwana Smith from Medsol Consulting. Just a quick one. Government has UPG online if you want to apply. Each province has an online.
Thank you for answering that question.
I mean, it's not a question, but it's just to add on, since we're imparting knowledge, if you want to keep abreast of industry knowledge, you can do a 4IR course at UJ. I'm UJ alumni, but this is not advertising or marketing on behalf of them, but they offer a free course for 4IR for free, and they teach you on artificial intelligence and all the things that we discussed today. I think the doctor from UJ, from JBS, is gone. But yeah,
What's your name again?
Gudwana Smith.
Thank you so much, because I have another question from Mabel here, which you just answered. She says, are there workshops and or training for the active elderly SMEs to be able to adapt to the technology? Thank you very much. I was going to throw it at them. Yeah. So, in 10 seconds each, right? Why should people work with your organization, Hepsi? And I'm counting 10 seconds.
Okay. Scenario is here that you run a mining company. The locals are upset about not understanding what are you providing for them. They close the gate to your mine, and they want to tell the story. How have you empowered us here? Come to Linkage. We can help you solve that problem.
Beautiful. That was quick. Seppo. In the real 10 seconds.
I think for me, if you know you have a business and you want to venture into African markets, I'm your guy.
Okay. I'm going to finish with you. Let's get Kholo to go first.
I think from our side, if you want to work with great talent, experienced professionals, you should definitely reach out to Credible.
Excellent. And Srini, finally, it's yours.
Yeah, I think from our side, look, you've got a trusted partner in Telkom for the last how many years that you guys know. I think most of you guys weren't born by then. So I think we've run this journey for quite a long time. We've entrenched in the South African market and economy. We've built this business up from a fixed line business now to a converged business going into the IT and cloud space. So we believe that we've put in that investment to really empower and support our SMEs.
Beep, beep. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and thank you to our panelists.